But if I'm aspirational about it, if I try for 5 and I only get 4 a week because I'm too busy for 5 and I always knew I was, it's like shoot for the moon and at least you'll fall among the stars. There are 2 problems with that. Problem number 1, the stars are several orders of magnitude further away than the moon. So if you don't make it to the moon, you're just in dead space and you're going to fucking die really soon, or they can launch a space shuttle to save your dumbass. And 2, even if you did fall into the stars are massive hydrogen bombs. You're going to die. It's terrible. Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for RP Strength. Are you training the right number of times per week to get your best gains? We're going to troubleshoot that for you. I'm Dr. Mike. I have a PhD in sport physiology. I've been a longtime college professor of exercise and sports science. I'm a competitive bodybuilder, competitive jiu-jitsu grappler, and I'm very much interested in trying to make you as jacked and lean as possible. Are you interested? Well, continue to listen on in. Training day number. How many times you're supposed to go to the gym to get your best gains? There are dozens of reasons potentially why you're not making the gains that you want to make. But after this video, if you implement all of the advice that I have to give you, you won't have to wonder if one of the reasons that you're not making the gains you want is the number of times you train at the gym per week, because we're going to explore that problem space back to front and give you clear ideas about what counts as enough training to give yourself the best chance of accomplishing your goals, which is all we can really do. We're going to do through 3 things. First is the fundamental science of the issue. Second is the best recommendations I can give you. And last are common mistakes and how to potentially fix them. I've seen a lot of common mistakes here. So the fundamental science is this on training frequency, number of times you train per week, not a single muscle group, just times you show up to the gym. The more times a week you train, the better the gains, period. But the relationship is what we call in science and mathematics asymptotic, which means it approaches a point, never quite gets there, and it gets less and less impressive as it approaches that point. In the context of training a number, this means a very specific thing. I'll walk you right through it. It's really simple. Training 2 times a week versus training 1 time a week is a big deal. Way better gains. Training 3 times a week gives you notably better gains than training 2 times a week, though not as impressive as the move from 1 to 2. Training 4 days a week will, in almost every case, make you more jacked than training 3 days a week. But the difference is now small, officially. It went from large difference to moderate difference to small difference. Here's where stuff gets really interesting. The difference between 5 days a week training and 4 days a week training doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get better results. Theoretically, it might, but it's very context dependent at that point. How much free time you have, what your overall stress levels are, what muscles are you prioritizing, what your training age is, and a bunch of different stuff. And the same relationship exists between 6 times a week training and 5 times a week training. Yeah, 6s might be more advantageous in some cases on average, but there's so much nuance and so much individual application that you can't reliably expect for 6-day-a-week plan to grow you better in almost every case than a 5-day-a-week plan. And you can't even rely on a 5-day-a-week plan to almost always be better than 4-day-a-week. You can rely on a 2-day-a-week plan to be better than 1-day-a-week for sure. 3 is definitely better than 2, though by only a moderate margin. And by a small margin, 4 times beats 3 times. But 4 times and 5 times, it's a toss-up. 5 and 6 is definitely a toss-up. So keeping that in mind, that's a big deal because we're going to have some training recommendations for you guys later based on that idea. And remember, training more is better for you, but it's asymptotic. So training a lot more is much better than a lot less. But training quite a bit more, if you're already training a lot, just may make no difference at all, notably in your program. Now, the relationship between training frequency and your results changes with training age. This is a big deal. Beginners, folks who have trained for 2 to 3 years, pretty hard, pretty dedicated, can get amazing gains from training only 2 to 3 times a week. And don't you fucking let anybody lie to you about this shit. There's people out there hawking programs, ultimate gainer plan, 5 days a week for beginners. Yeah, that can work, but you can get unreal gains in just 2 or 3 times a week. Why not get the easy gains? It's amazing. Intermediates can get amazing gains training anywhere between 3 and 5 times a week. There are a lot of programs that, I don't want to say prey on intermediates who think they should be training 6 and 7 times a week to get their best gains when they can make unbelievable gains that are super worth it from a amount of effort you put in to result you get out kind of perspective and give you an absolute amount of really awesome muscle size. Intermediates can do this between 3, 4, and 5 days a week of training, and there's no reason to think up 6 and 2 a days right away. Now, advanced folks can usually only get their best gains training 4, 5, or 6 days a week. I remember one time we were making a template back in the old school days for RP, and we were making 2X, 3X, 4X, 5X, and 6X workout templates. And I remember one person asked why there wasn't an advanced 2 time a week option. We had to patiently describe to this young man that 2 time a week training and advanced are contradiction in terms. It's like a Formula One car driver asking you, like, is there like a track which the top speed is 30 miles an hour? You're like, but you're a race car driver. He's like, yeah, it's kind of, just got to stroll around, got to work on my technique a little bit more than my kind of racing skills. You're like, I think he hit his head. He hit his head. Something's wrong with that guy. That's not how it works. So yeah, advanced do have to do 4, 5, or 6 days of training to get their best results, but it can mean 4 and can mean 5. It doesn't mean 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But also, they're not going to lie to you. You're advanced. It's tougher for you to grow. You're going to have to do more to get your best results. There's not an advanced situation in which 3 days a week training is going to be superior to 4, 5, or 6 days a week in almost every case. Here's another real big insight directly from the fundamental science and the empirical literature. This is a tough one for a lot of folks to swallow, so I'm going to be really, really careful on how I explain this. Watch me fuck it up. Fewer gains are not no gains, and no gains are not losses. Intermediates, if they train 3 times a week or even twice a week, they can still get slow gains, net gains. So when you're training twice a week and you've been training for 4 years, you could still make slow gains that entire time for a year or 2 or even 3 through your intermediate phase by training only twice a week. But I thought you were supposed to just not gain at all. Nope. Well, I thought you were going to lose muscle training twice a week. Nope. Advanced folks, people training for 7 years or longer, ultra dedicated, can slow gain training 3 or 4 days a week. Yeah, now they get ideal results 4, 5, 6, but they can still make slow gains in many cases, training only 3 times a week. People think, okay, it's either my ideal gains or I lose muscle or I just gain nothing. Ideal gains are dope, but you can also have gains that are pretty fucking good and gains that are pretty decent and noticeable at considerably smaller frequencies per week. Why am I saying this? Because people think, hey, look, I got finals week coming up. I got vacation after that. And some other shit. I got a trip for my school after that. That's the 3 weeks of me not training because it's not worth it because I can't go to the gym 5 days a week. Someone's like, hey, can you go 3 days a week? Yeah, but why would I do that? Because you could still make damn good gains at your training age, train 2 times a week. And they're like, yeah, but I'm one of these guys, bro. And the bullshit starts. It's not 100%, man. It's called the all or nothing fallacy. It's stupid. Don't commit it. You can get great results training not a ton, but a moderate amount. Last thing, as far as fundamental science is concerned, and this is like beyond the pale of how much research goes behind this thing, but it turns out you don't really need a whole lot of research to validate this, though a ton exists in the exercise adherence literature. The most legit thing to determine how many times a week you should be training is scheduling realism. Can you make the sessions reliably? If you can easily make 5 sessions a week and you love training and you basically never miss, amazing. That's dope. But if you can barely make 3 times a week most weeks and you have to cancel one of the sessions pretty regularly, schedule 2 times a week sessions for yourself so you can have the confidence and feeling of accomplishment of making the sessions, green checkboxing them, checking them in the RP Hypertrophy app, and then you're fucking golden. If you put too much on your plate, more than you can eat, you're wasting food. You're wasting people's time, your own time, and your own frustration if you try to schedule in more sessions than you can do. And I know, that little animal inside you goes, but if I'm aspirational about it, if I try for 5, and I only get 4 a week because I'm too busy for 5 and I always knew I was. It's like shoot for the moon and at least you'll fall among the stars. There are 2 problems with that. Problem number 1, the stars are several orders of magnitude further away than the moon. So if you don't make it to the moon, you're just in dead space and you're going to fucking die really soon, or they can launch a space shuttle to save your dumbass. And 2, even if you did fall into the stars are massive hydrogen bombs. You're going to die. It's terrible. Scheduling's not that bad, but it's really annoying to schedule 5 days a week all the time and only really ever make 4. Then you start asking hey, how do I rig my app? Do I check in the workout? Do I skip the workout? Do I push it later to the other week? If you just secure the number of slots in your week, maybe for you it's 2, maybe for you it's 5, maybe it's something in between that you can definitely make, do that. That is a high number of concern right there. Because if you think of it aspirationally, another way to say that is you're just setting yourself up for failure, and not just failure, but a complexity of having to try to re-rig your plan all the time because you're missing critical days in your program. So only show up for what you can show up for. Now, that may require you staring yourself in the mirror a little bit and being like, what? I'm in the part of my life where I can only train twice a week, really. If I think about it, then that's the fucking reality. You want to tell your boss to go F off and get a new job doing dick all so you have time to train like a pro bodybuilder? That's what I did. And years later, I'm broke. Please, God, give me money. I have no money for food. But on a serious note, that's the basic science. Let's look at the direct recommendations. Recommendation number 1 is do only what you can reliably make week to week. How many times a day should I train? If you're asking, I give you a right answer real quick back. How many times can you make it comfortably? Week to week for sure. If the answer is 3, then it's 3. If it's 2, then it's 2. Then we have a conversation between should you do 2 or should you do 3. But if the answer is not 4, definitely 4 is off the table. Amazing. You just constrained your decisional calculus to a much smaller subset of values. Now we can choose from those. Generally speaking, if you're a beginner, your best return on investment is going to come from training 2 to 3 times a week. If you're intermediate, 3 to 5 times a week. And if you're advanced, 4 to 6. And my last thing on the recommendations is,
what do you get when PhD sports scientists collaborate with pro bodybuilders? The most effective muscle growth training app ever made. Get yours now.
All of that combined with whatever keeps the gains coming for you and you like. If you can make 4 sessions a week, if you like 4 sessions a week, and the gains are good, hell yes, that's the right answer. It could mean 3 is also dope. It could mean 5 also works. But if it checks every checkbox of I can do it, I like doing it, and it's giving me good results, then you're golden. Even as a beginner, you can train 4 days a week. Even as a beginner, you can train 6 days a week. It's just an ROI problem. You're getting 20% more gains for 150 or 370% more effort or something like that. It starts to be questionable. And as a beginner, you're just kind of growing into your body and learning new anyway. So the best ROI really is for beginners to do a little bit less, intermediates a little bit more, and advanced to do the most out of all the folks. But always constrained to your schedule and if the gains are working out for you. That's all good in ideal, but some people mess this up, and I've been one of these people many times. I have 5 at least common mistakes that I'd like to give you some insight onto so that maybe you don't commit them yourself, or see if your training partners or friends are committing them and try to help them out. So the first thing is thinking more sessions is always better. It's a very straightforward logic. I want to get more jacked. Training gets me jacked. More training gets me more jacked, which isn't wrong. But if you fall out of the context of what you can recover from, if you fall out of the context with what you can make to the gym, if you fall out of the context of what you even enjoy anymore, and you fall out of the context of like the return on investment is really, really high with a smaller number of training days per week, especially as a beginner, then yeah, more sessions is better, but no longer always. Now it's contextual, and now this is just not true anymore. Number 2, tons of sessions, you just don't show up, but you're not reducing your schedule after a while. I've seen this a ton. Talk to clients when I used to coach clients and be like, okay, so we got you on a 5X a week plan. They're like, yeah, 5 days a week. When was the last time you ate 5 days a week? They're like, it looks like it was 4.5 months ago. I got you. Listen, you're going to get amazing gains 4 times a week. Do you want me to rewrite you the plan for 4 times a week? Like, you know what? Nah, man, I really got to step up to the plate. I'm going to challenge myself next month to make these 5X sessions. I've seen it dozens of times, and it usually doesn't work out. So when it doesn't fit your schedule, it's totally fine to reduce the number of training days you train so you can actually make them. And if you say to yourself, look, I'm not going to alter my schedule, I'm going to make them, then fucking make them. But most people refuse to alter the schedule, but they're also not interested in re-architecting their number of training days. So they're just essentially setting themselves up for failure 100% of the time. It's like you have a shitty friend, like not all friends are great. You have friends in middle school, high school you don't talk to because they're just like the only person that sat in that one class, you started talking to them, now you're friends. Then you realize like over time they kind of suck and there's like an energy vampire and they bring you down and they kind of blow and you try to prop them up, but they're like, nah, fuck you. But they're still your friend. It's like, it's time to tell them that you're not really friends anymore. Stop hanging out with them. Or it's time to call them out on their bullshit and get them to act better. But most people do what? They do neither. So they still hang out with people they hate. That's an example of missing tons of sessions, but not reducing your schedule. You gotta do one or the other. Number 3, some people like their schedule so much that they won't change it even when it's super, super rational to change it. For example, some folks have plenty of time in the week to do 3 sessions or even 4 sessions, but they started with 2 and they like 2. When they go to the gym, now that they're doing more and more work because they're stronger, it takes longer for them to warm up. They have more muscles in training. Maybe they're more intermediate than beginner. They're like, yeah, I still like to come in twice a week though. Like, dude, your workout is 2.5 hours long. After about an hour and a half of training for most people, if it's hard training, the rest of that training that you do there is so easy. You have so little energy that the amount of muscle growth stimulus you can actually input into your muscles with any training that lasts longer than about an hour and a half is just kind of nominal in many cases. It's just not worth the squeeze. So it's better off that you come in 3 or 4 times a week and have 1.5 hour sessions rather than having marathon 2.5 hour sessions twice a week. And some people say like, oh, I like it this way. Dope. No disrespect, but your quality of training could enhance substantially if you stop sticking to an arbitrarily low number of training sessions. People do it all the time. I've talked to people that do it. They love it. I don't know why. Next, this is a really, really big one, is the grass is greener on the other side syndrome, expressed as thinking that a 6-time-a-week plan is going to get you revolutionary results compared to a 5-time-a-week plan. People go, man, 6X, new mesocycle start, your boy's about to grow crazy muscle. They're almost everywhere disappointed because switching to 6-time-a-week training from 5-time-a-week training outside of some very special circumstances is just going to produce slightly better results. Results that would take you months and months and months to notice are slightly better, not like a week or 2 or some shit like that. So there's nothing in the world wrong with going from 5 days a week training to 6 days a week training. I've done that and back and forth. But there is something that you're setting yourself up for if you expect that switch to be like, oh my God, this is the end. Like, I'm going to be fucking enormous. Finally, lived my life at 170 pounds. I'm going to be 220 pounds shredded when 6X a week hits. It is just not what's going to happen. So real talk, remember that idea, 5 and 6 is a nuanced difference that's very contextual. It's not even so sure that you'll get better gains from 6X versus 5X. So don't expect crazy gains. People just think, I add it, it gets better. I have a Diet Coke, I have 2 Diet Cokes, I have 3 Diet Cokes. It adds up like training does. Not the case. Better analogy there is like, yeah, you have 2 Diet Cokes now, but you got to go through a TSA screening in 15 minutes. How many Diet Cokes can you drink? 1. Throw the other one away. It's a waste of your time. Number 5. This is a big one. It's the biggest one. And it's the one that gets to me the most because it's the most wrong. A lot of folks think something like, and it applies at every other time scale, going from training 5 days a week down to training 4 days a week means they'll lose gains. How do I know this? People on social media actually ask the question in this way. They go, hey, I'm busy at school and at work, so for the next 2 months, I have to train 4 times a week instead of the 5 I'm used to. How much muscle and strength can I expect to lose in that time? I have amazing news for you guys. In almost all cases, if you go from 5-day-a-week training to 4-day-a-week training, you will lose 0 muscle and strength, but it gets better than that. You'll still gain muscle and strength robustly, consistently, at a really good pace, just more slowly than you were gaining at 5 days a week, by a little bit. That's the difference. In order for you to have to go into a place of true maintenance where you're not losing strength or muscle, but you're not gaining it, you may have to train twice a week, having been used to training 5 or 4 times a week. Twice a week may be the thing that gets you maintenance, and even twice hard might get you really slow gains still, especially if you're intermediate. But if you want losses, Once a week, shitty training will still preserve most of your muscle for months if you're used to 5 times a week. So even that doesn't work so well to reduce muscle mass. But I suppose if you combine 1 time a week weight training with a really harsh fat loss diet and a crap load of stress and under-eating protein, I don't know, then you lose some serious muscle. But it turns out even training every muscle group relatively hard in a given session once a week, total, just 1 session for your whole body, if you hit most of the major muscle groups and push them pretty hard, you can maintain. Definitely as a beginner, you can even make slow gains. As an intermediate, you can for sure maintain. As an advanced person, you'll lose, but very, very slowly. It turns out the best way to lose muscle mass is, drum roll, fail on consistency and spend weeks and weeks away from the gym. That's how you really fuck it up, and plenty of people do that. So remember, if you have to go from 5 to 4 or 4 to 3, you're still making great gains in most cases, and at very worst, maintaining. You're not losing. You have nothing to lose. It's not, you go straight from optimal gains to losses. You go optimal gains, decent gains, no gains, then losses. You're skipping a few steps. So no worries on that one. Guys, if you want to implement all these things now, you can do it by yourself in your notebook or whatever app you use. Dope. If you use the RP Hypertrophy app, it can help you make sure that you're choosing the right number of sessions. It'll make recommendations for you. It'll keep you to task. It's all really great stuff. Link in the description. Give that a click. Buy stuff. I need money. Please help. I'm running out of green t-shirts to wear. Anyway, let me know if this was helpful. Questions in the comments. See you guys next time.